Alright, good morning everyone. We are here with break 451. This one's a 26 League Heroes combo break featuring the 26 League Heroes sealed retail case, the 26 League Heroes, two 26 League Heroes hobby boxes, and 5 26 League Heroes starter packs. Our team list for this one: Broncos, Johnny D; Raiders, Joseph Romeo; Bulldogs, Richard Bartholomew; Sharks, James Mathews; Dolphins, Rod Staples; Titans, Rick Wallace; Manly, Jade Thompson; Storm, Micah Luafutu; Knights, Scott McBryde; Cowboys, Jason Biegemann; Eels, Craig Hyde; Panthers, Joseph Romeo; Rabbitohs, Sam Driscoll; Dragons, Warren Stoddart; Roosters, Chris Hughes; Warriors, Chris Sando; Tigers, Rick Wallace. Alright, let's get set in, change screens, bring YouTube up for the chat and the team list. There we are. Let's just refresh that, bring it back to front. Alright, we're going to get started with the starter packs. We have our knife and scissors are ready to go. If you notice any issues, please let me know in the chat. Yesterday, people were letting us know it was a bit glitchy. Hopefully, with the weather being a bit nicer, because that's the only thing we could come up with, we're going to get rid of those issues now. We're just going to open these starter packs, get the bonus packs out, and we'll go from there. Let's go. League heads, Sebastian Chris for the Raiders. Blake Brayley for the Sharks. Lindsay Collins for the Roosters. Tommy Dearden for the Cowboys. And Harry Grant for the Storm. Right, let's get through the packets. We can get rid of the scissors out of the way. League heads, KO Weeks for the Raiders. Luminous, Felice Kafusi for Dolphins. Game Breakers, Alex Seyfarth for the Tigers. Luminous, Ethan Strange for the Raiders. Die cuts. Trent Leroux for Storm. Luminous Junior Paulo for the Eels. Die cuts. Terrell May for the Tigers. Luminous Tyron Wishart for the Storm. Bang Matthew Tomoko for the Raiders. Luminous Kira Dibb for the Cowboys. League head Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Alex 12 for the Tigers. Game breakers Joseph Tarpanay for the Raiders. Luminous Jack Williams for the Eels. Die cuts Isaac Tago for Panthers. Luminous Stefano Utakamanu for Storm. League heads Isaiah Yeo for Panthers. Luminous Terrell May for the Tigers. League heads Connor Watson for the Roosters. Luminous Sam Verrills for the Titans. Game breakers Ben Trebojevic for Manly. Luminous Bradman Best for the Knights. Game breakers Patrick Carrigan for the Broncos. Luminous Braden Trindle for the Sharks. League heads Marata Nakor for the Warriors. Luminous Beau Fermor for Titans. Bang. Oh, a double stamp. There we go. I've seen the off ones, but we've got a double stamp Chance Nicole Klokstad in the Warriors. Luminous Jason Tormalolo for the Cowboys. Game breakers Tamir Martin for the Warriors. Luminous KO Weeks for the Raiders. That's the end of the packs from our starter packs. There's our 2 hobby boxes for the end of the break. And let's get these boxes out of the retail. Hope everyone's got their entry into the Tick the Score giveaway in the Facebook group. And if you ever hear about something in the videos and you want to know more, you don't understand what I'm talking about, you're always welcome to message us on Facebook and ask the question. Happy to help. Before I sit down, I'm just going to grab another couple of packets of sleeves. There was one out, so I just grabbed it rather than having to open a whole new packet bundle. Alright, we are ready. Box number 1. Packet number 1 from box number 1. League heads Karen McInnes for the Sharks. Luminous Brendan Smith for the Rabbitohs. Let's chuck them in there, out of our way. Feel a bit disorganised this morning and I don't know why. Gladiators, Kalen Ponga for the Knights, number 593. Luminous Joseph Tarpanay for the Raiders. League heads Kalen Ponga for the Knights. Luminous Greg Mathews for the Knights. Game breakers Wade Egan for the Warriors. Luminous Kuli Kefu for the Dolphins. League heads Molly Olika R2 for Manly. Luminous Daniel Tupou for the Roosters. Game breakers Jermaine Isako for Dolphins. Luminous Abhi Nichols for the Warriors. Alright, get open. Die cuts Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. Luminous Carl Lawton for the Cowboys. Game breakers Jackson Purdue for Cowboys. Luminous Fanua Pole for Tigers. League heads Cohen Hess for Cowboys. Luminous Cameron McInnes for the Sharks. Bang Marky Mark for Roosters. Luminous Trent Leroux for Storm. League heads Brian Kelly for the Titans. Luminous Jamal Fogarty for Manly. Die cuts Luke Lawley for Tigers. Luminous AJ Brimson for the Titans. Bang Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Marata Nakor for Warriors. Game Breakers Milwaukee Photo Ica for Titans. Moses Leota for Panthers. League heads Adam Reynolds for the Broncos. Luminous Jermaine Hopgood for the Eels. Game Breakers Ryan Pappenhausen for Storm. Luminous Mackenzie Wheel for Cowboys. Marky Mark for the Roosters. Luminous Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. League heads Connolly Lumi Lou for the Dolphins. Luminous Dylan Lucas for the Knights. Game Breakers Taylor Preston for the Bulldogs. Luminous Lachlan Galvin for the Bulldogs. Bang Kalen Ponga for the Knights. Luminous Adam Reynolds for the Broncos. League heads Liam Martin for Panthers. Luminous Hugo Savala for Roosters. Red Triumph Bronson Sherry for the Bulldogs. Luminous Farlago for Storm. Game Breakers Zach Lomax for the Eels. Luminous Tamale for the Raiders. Die cuts Val Holmes for the Dragons. Luminous Emma Veron for the Sharks. League heads Luke Metcalf for the Warriors. Samula Fainu for the Tigers. Bang Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboys. Luminous Ray Stone for the Dolphins. Game Breakers Phoenix Crossland for the Knights. Luminous Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs. League heads Max King for the Bulldogs. Luminous Philip Semi for the Titans. Bang Jack Bostock for the Dolphins. Luminous Patrick Carrigan for the Broncos. Die cuts Bo Fermor for Titans. Luminous Dane Gagai for the Knights. League heads Luciano Leilua for the Dragons. Luminous Connor Watson for the Roosters. Lachlan Ilias Game Breakers for the Dragons. Luminous Moses Sulai for the Dragons. Bang Bailey Haywood for the Bulldogs. Luminous Dylan Walker for the Eels. 3 packets left in our first box. League heads Latrell Mitchell for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Zahara Temera for the Raiders. Mercury Ethan Strange for the Raiders, number 79. Luminous Brian Top for Panthers. Red Triumph in the team for Broncos. Luminous Luke Lilly for the Tigers. Box number 2. Die cut Brendan Pakura for the Broncos. Luminous Jalen de Groot for the Titans. League heads Renato Militalo for the Sharks. Luminous Corey Horsburgh for the Raiders. Game breakers Alex Seafarth for the Tigers. Luminous Cassie Hiku for the Eels. Instant win. Luminous Marky Mark for the Roosters. Bang Matt Burton for the Bulldogs. Luminous Tom Gilbert for the Dolphins. Game breakers Olivia Koenig for the Roosters. Luminous Wade Egan for the Warriors. Oh, this jumper's annoying me. League heads Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Latu Finu for the Tigers. Die cut Liam Martin for Panthers. Luminous Ezra Mam for Broncos. League heads Jacob Carraz for the Bulldogs. Luminous Tom Dearden for the Cowboys. Bang Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Luminous Jai Arrow for the Rabbitohs. League heads Jacob Little for the Dragons. Luminous Keanu Kinney for the Titans. Jack Howarth die cut for the Storm. Luminous Kyle Flanagan for the Dragons. Game breakers Sebastian Chris for the Raiders. Luminous Angelina for the Bulldogs. Red Triumph, Alefiana Khan Piera for Titans. Luminous, Zach Lomax for the Eels. League Heads, Joseph Tarpanay for the Raiders. Luminous, Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Bang, Chanel Harris Tavita for the Warriors. Luminous, Jamie Humphries for the Rabbitohs. League Heads, Jerome Hughes for Storm. Luminous, Billy Walters for the Broncos. Game Breakers, Ben Trebojevic for Manly. Luminous, Tyson Frizzell for Knights. League Heads, Jason Saab for Manly. Luminous, Ali Latua for the Warriors. Game Breakers, Mitchell Moses for the Eels. Luminous, Jordan Ricky for the Broncos. Bang, Nico Hines for the Sharks. Luminous, Jessica Surgis for the Roosters. League Heads, Cody Nikarima for the Dolphins. Luminous, Mitchell Moses for the Eels. Gladiators, Jermaine Hopgood for the Eels, number 597. Luminous, Harry Grant for the Storm. Game Breakers, Latrell Mitchell for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Renato Militalo for the Sharks. League Heads, Alefiana Khan Piera for Titans. Luminous, Jacob Saifiti for Knights. Game Breakers, Joseph Tarpanay for the Raiders. Luminous, Zach Labour for the Cowboys. Bang, Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Loco Tonga for the Dragons. League Heads, Will Penasini for the Eels. Luminous Luke Brooks for Manly. Die cuts Dylan Lucas for the Knights. Luminous Isaiah Katoa for the Dolphins. Game breakers Tamir Martin for the Warriors. Luminous Xavier Savage for the Raiders. Red Triumph for the Dolphins. Luminous Georgia Hale for the Titans. Mercury Billy Walters for the Broncos, number 244. Luminous Josh Kerr for the Dragons. Helps if I can get it open. League heads Jeremiah Nanai for the Cowboys. Luminous Ruben Garrick for Manly. Game breakers Patrick Carrigan for the Broncos. Luminous Mitch Kenny for the Panthers. Bang Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Luminous Adam Fanua Blake for the Sharks. League heads Lindsay Smith for the Panthers. Luminous Bailey Haywood for the Bulldogs. That's box number 2 done and dusted. There won't be any more hobby breaks, will there? No. Selectors told us they're sold out of stock. We can't get any more. But they may prove me wrong. They've already done it a couple of times, saying stuff wasn't available, and later on allowed us to get more. So game breakers Billy Walters for the Broncos. Luminous Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. League heads Alex Twal for the Tigers. Luminous Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys. Game Breakers Connor Watson for the Roosters. Luminous Dream Buller for the Tigers. Bang Scott Drinkwater for Cowboys. Luminous Xavier Coates for Storm. League Heads Moses Sulai for the Dragons. Luminous Herbie Farnworth for the Dolphins. Die Cuts Tom Starling for the Raiders. Luminous Dylan Egan for the Dragons. Game Breakers Tyron Wishart for the Storm. Luminous Abby Church for the Eels. Bang Hugo Savala for the Roosters. Luminous Spencer Lenu for the Roosters. League Heads Hudson Young for the Raiders. Luminous Isaiah Yo for Panthers. Jacob Carraz die cut for Bulldogs. Luminous Dylan Brown for Knights. Game Breakers Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Clinton Gutherson for the Dragons. Mercury Philip Sammy for the Titans. Number 159. Luminous Ben Hunt for the Broncos. League Heads Hammer for the Dolphins. Luminous Asai Yongi for the Eels. Game Breakers Jacob Carraz for the Bulldogs. Luminous Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. Bang Phoenix Crossland for the Knights. Luminous Matt Burton for the Bulldogs. League Heads Isaiah Yo for Panthers. Luminous Jamie Chapman for the Titans. Billy Smith, die cuts for the Roosters. Luminous Jerome Luai for the Tigers. Game Breakers Keezy Apps for the Tigers. Luminous Hudson Young for the Raiders. Bang Jaden Campbell for the Titans. Luminous Leka Halasima for the Warriors. League Heads Jack Williams for the Eels. Luminous Hammer for the Dolphins. Red Triumph for the Cowboys. Luminous Cohen Hess for the Cowboys. You know, I think we've done around 50, 26 League Heroes case breaks, whether that be hobby, retail, combos, whatever the case was. Yeah, at least a case in each one. That's a lot of cards. Keon Colin Matengi, die cut for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Nico Hines for the Sharks. Game Breakers Asaya Yo for Panthers. Luminous Lehe Hopawate for Manly. I think the first League Heroes break we listed was around 410, 411. We've now got 460 listed as coming soon. We have a Dally M Predictor, a League Heads, Connor Watson for the Roosters, and Morgan Smithies, a Luminous for the Raiders. Bang Dean Mariner for the Broncos. Luminous Dean Mariner for the Broncos. Gladiators Tommy Turbo for Manly, number 265. Luminous Isabel Kelly for the Roosters. League Heads Xavier Willison for the Broncos. Luminous Nelson Asafa Solomona for Storm. Game Breakers Jason Tormalolo for the Cowboys. Luminous Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. Bang Leka Halasima for the Warriors. Luminous Valami Kickout for the Bulldogs. League Heads Braden Trindle for the Sharks. Luminous Episode Coruscant for the Tigers. Red Triumph, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck for the Warriors. Luminous, Liam Martin for Panthers. League Heads, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck for the Warriors. Luminous, Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboys. 4 packets left for box number 3. Game Breakers, Junior Paulo for the Eels. Luminous, Luca Moretti for the Eels. League Heads, Murray Tulagi for Cowboys. Luminous, James Fisher-Harris for the Warriors. Die cut, Casey McLean for Panthers. Luminous, Yasmin Clydesdale for the Knights. League Heads, Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Val Holmes for the Dragons. And that's box number 3. Box number 4. League Heads, Robert Toya for the Roosters. Luminous, Tamir Martin for the Warriors. Game Breakers, Nico Hines for the Sharks. Luminous, Jai Gray for the Rabbitohs. Die cuts, Lachlan Ilias for the Dragons. Luminous, Reed Marnie for the Cowboys. League Heads, Reese Walsh for the Broncos. Luminous, Damien Cook for the Dragons. Game Breakers, Hammer for the Dolphins. Luminous, Adam Dewey for the Tigers. And Dally M rookie for the table. Luminous, Dominic Young for the Knights. League Heads, Brighton Niggera for the Sharks. Luminous, Hamoli Olika-Atu for Manly. Bang Xavier Coates for Storm. Luminous Lindsay Collins for the Roosters. Game Breakers, Hamoli Olika R2 for Manly. Luminous Milwaukee Photo Ika for Titans. League Heads, Marata Nakor for the Warriors. Luminous Ali Briganshaw for the Broncos. Gladiators, William Kennedy for the Sharks, number 489. Luminous Jermaine Isako for Dolphins. League Heads, Fanua Pole for the Tigers. Luminous Jerome Hughes for Storm. Game Breakers, Nelson Asafa Solomona for Storm. Luminous Casey McLean for Panthers. Bang Damien Cook for the Dragons. Luminous Chance Nico Klokstad for the Warriors. League Heads, Cody Walker for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Ethan Sanders for the Raiders. Mercury Jaden Sewer for the Dragons, number 37. William Kennedy for the Sharks. Luminous Game Breakers. Yep, there's a new one. Ezra Mam Game Breakers for Broncos. Sotili Tupanua for the Bulldogs. From the hobby breaks, I swear. Every first card's luminous. It was easy. Die cuts Jerome Luai for the Tigers. Luminous Sean Russell for the Eels. Die cuts Jerome Hughes for Storm. Luminous Big Tino for the Titans. Bang Luke Brooks for Manly. Luminous Kale Iro for Sharks. League Heads, Tommy Turbo for Manly. Luminous Cody Nikarima for the Dolphins. Game breakers, Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors. Luminous, Jason Saab for Manly. League heads, Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. Luminous, Ryan Pappenhausen for the Storm. Red Triumph, Tommy Turbo for Manly. Luminous, Gahamat Shabarski for the Broncos. Bang, Asaya Iongi for the Eels. Luminous, Jacob Preston for the Bulldogs. League heads, Fletcher Sharp for the Knights. Luminous, Jeremiah Nanai for the Cowboys. Game breakers, Brian Kelly for the Titans. Luminous, Keezy Apps for the Tigers. Die cuts, Jack Williams for the Eels. Luminous, Cody Walker for the Rabbitohs. League heads, Ray Stone for the Dolphins. Luminous, Brighton Nickera for the Sharks. Game breakers, Damien Cook for the Dragons. Kalen Ponga, Luminous for the Knights. Bang, Sebastian Chris for the Raiders. Luminous, Lycan King Togia for the Dragons. Red Triumph, Melbourne Storm. Luminous, Isaac Tago for Panthers. League heads, Ryan Pappenhausen for Storm. Luminous, Alafiana Kanki Era for Titans. Game breakers, Yasmin Clydesdale for the Knights. Luminous, Addo Carr for the Eels. League heads, Dylan Walker for the Eels. Luminous, Robert Toya for the Roosters. Last packet for box number 4. Bang, Jack Bostock for the Dolphins. Luminous, Samaima Torfa for the Raiders. Tidy these up and we'll get stuck into the next one. Game breakers William Kennedy for the Sharks. Luminous Zach Labour for the Cowboys. Die cut Lehe Hopper-Wate for Manly. Luminous Loco Tonga for the Dragons. League heads Dylan Edwards for Panthers. Luminous Luke Brooks for Manly. Game breakers Kurt Mann for the Bulldogs. Luminous Isaiah Katoa for Dolphins. Bang Tony Staggs for Broncos. Luminous Xavier Savage for the Raiders. League heads Patrick Carrigan for the Broncos. Georgia Hale, Luminous for the Titans. Game breakers Olivia Higgins for the Knights. Luminous Josh Kerr for the Dragons. Mercury Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs, number 56. Ruben Garrick, Luminous for Manly. League heads Corey Horsburgh for the Raiders. Luminous Mitch Kenny for Panthers. Bang Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. Luminous Antonua Blake for the Sharks. Game breakers Herbie Farmworth for the Dolphins. Luminous Bailey Haywood for the Bulldogs. League heads Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs. Luminous Tyson Frizzell for the Knights. Die cuts, Jermaine Isako for Dolphins. Luminous, Jalen de Groot for Titans. League heads, Blake Brayley for the Sharks. Luminous, Corey Horsburgh for the Raiders. Game breakers, Billy Smith for the Roosters. Luminous, Cassie Hiku for the Eels. Dally M Predictor. Luminous, Marky Mark for the Roosters. League heads, Herbie Farmworth for the Dolphins. Luminous, Tom Gilbert for the Dolphins. Bang, Jermaine Isako for Dolphins. Luminous, Jacob Saifiti for Knights. Red Triumph, Jermaine Isako for Dolphins. Luminous, John Bateman for the Cowboys. League heads, Regan Campbell Gillard for the Titans. Luminous, Jamin Salmon for the Bulldogs. Game breakers, Samaima Torfa for the Raiders. Luminous, Cameron Munster for the Storm. League heads, Ethan Bullimore for Manly. Luminous, Brian Kelly for the Titans. Bang, Bailey Simonson for the Eels. Luminous, Bailey Simonson for the Eels. Seeing double. League heads, Xavier Coates for Storm. Luminous, Jesse Southwell for the Knights. I heard, I don't know if it's true or not, because can't remember where I read it, but Joash Papali'i from the Eels has also gone to train with the Blues. So, Xavier Savage, Gladiators for Raiders, number 303. Luminous, Luciano Lei Lua for the Dragons. Game breakers, Bailey Simonson for the Eels. Luminous, Katoni Staggs for Broncos. Bang, Tolto Koala for Manly. Luminous Asaya Papalihi for Panthers. League heads, Phoenix Crossland for the Knights. Luminous Jacob Carraz for the Bulldogs. Mitchell Moses, a die cut for the Eels. Luminous Alex Seyfarth for the Tigers. Game Breakers, Blaze Talagi for Cowboys. How about Panthers even? Luminous Keon Colomatini for Rabbitohs. I didn't think about that until after I said the name. I don't know, something. I looked at it and I thought it was Cowboys card. Red Triumph Mawaki Fotowaika for the Titans. Luminous Ali Latua for the Warriors. Down to 5 packets in box number 5. League heads, Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys. Luminous Jordan Ricky for the Broncos. Bang Hugo Savala for Roosters. Luminous Jessica Surgis for Roosters. Game Breakers, Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Mitchell Moses for the Eels. Die cut Xavier Savage for the Raiders. Luminous Harry Grant for Storm. League heads, Zach Lomax for the Eels. Luminous Renato Molitalo for the Sharks. And that box 5 done and dusted. Box number 6. Die cut Jack Hetherington for the Knights. Reece Walsh Luminous for Broncos. Red Triumph Murray Talagi for the Cowboys. Luminous Tolto Koala for Manly. Game Breakers Lehe Hopawate for Manly. Luminous Dylan Edwards for Panthers. Bang, Jesse Ramian for the Sharks. Luminous, Payne Haas for Broncos. League Heads, Lehe Hopawate for Manly. Luminous, Sebastian Chris for the Raiders. Game Breakers, Tiana Penatani Gray for the Sharks. Luminous, Phoenix Crossland for the Knights. League Heads, Greg Mathews for the Knights. Luminous, Angus Crichton for the Roosters. Game Breakers, Bradman Best for the Knights. Luminous, Jaden Campbell for Titans. Gladiators, Apposite Coruscant for the Tigers, 369. Luminous, Taylor Preston for the Bulldogs. League Heads, Joash for the Eels. Luminous, Ethan Bullymore for Manly. Game Breakers, Tommy Dearden for the Cowboys. Luminous, Jesse Colquhoun for the Sharks. Die cut, Joash for the Eels. Luminous, Kurt Catewell for the Warriors. League Heads, Keon Kolomatangi for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. Bang, Sanua Taruva for the Tigers. Luminous, Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys. Taruva just announcing his contract extension to 2030. Game Breakers, Loco Tonga for the Dragons. Luminous, Dream Buller for Tigers. League Heads, Marky Mark for the Roosters. Luminous, Xavier Coates for Storm. Mercury, Murray Talagi for the Cowboys, number 298. Luminous, Herbie Farmworth for Dolphins. Bang, Adam Reynolds for the Broncos. Luminous, Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. Die cut, Leka Halasima for Warriors. Luminous, Dylan Egan for the Dragons. League Heads, Apsai Coruscant for the Tigers. Luminous, Abby Church for the Eels. Game Breakers, Jerome Hughes for Storm. Coates in the wrong pile. Where did I put him? Luminous, Spencer Lenu for the Roosters. Coates in the Raiders stack. Oh, yep. Champion. Thank you. League Heads, Tom Starling for the Raiders. Luminous, Isaiah Yo for Panthers. Bang, Tamale for the Raiders. Luminous, Dylan Brown for the Knights. League Heads, Liam Kennedy for the Sharks. Luminous, Clinton Gutherson for the Dragons. Die cuts, Tolator Koala for Manly. Luminous, Ben Hunt for Broncos. Game Breakers, Cooley Kefu for the Dolphins. Luminous, Asaya Iongi for the Eels. Bang, Damien Cook for the Dragons. Luminous, Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. League Heads, Milwaukee for the Titans. Luminous, Matt Burton for the Bulldogs. Die cut, Asaya Katoa for the Dolphins. Luminous, Jamie Chapman for the Titans. League Heads, Ben Hunt for the Broncos. Luminous, Jerome Luai for the Tigers. Bang, Teddy for the Roosters. Luminous, Hudson Young for the Raiders. Game breakers, Mahalia Murphy for the Eels. Luminous, Leka Halasima for the Warriors. League heads, Bailey Haywood for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Hammer Fido for the Dolphins. Triumph, Luke Metcalf for the Warriors. Luminous, Cohen Hess for the Cowboys. League heads, Jermaine Isako for Dolphins. Luminous, Nico Hines for the Sharks. And last packet for box number 6. Game breakers, Alafiana Khan Piera for Titans. Luminous, Lehe Hopawate for Manly. And to think, if we were doing a hobby case break, this is where we'd be saying we are done. But we still have half the case to go, as well as our 2 hobby boxes at the end. Let's get them out of the way and get stuck into box number 7. Game breakers, Valami Kickout for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Jacob Preston for the Bulldogs. Bang, Isaac Tago for Panthers. Luminous, Jeremiah Nanai for the Cowboys. League heads, Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. Luminous, Keezy Apps for... we're halfway through the case, so another 6 boxes plus the 2 hobby boxes at the end. Keezy Apps for the Tigers. We're just under halfway, pretty much, with the 5 starter packs at the beginning. Red Triumph for Manly. Luminous, Cody Walker for the Rabbitohs. Game breakers, Tegan Berry for the Dragons. Luminous, Brighton Nickera for the Sharks. League heads, Nico Hines for the Sharks. Luminous, Kalen Ponga for the Knights. Game breakers, Bo Fermor for Titans. Luminous, Lycan King Togia for Dragons. Bang, Murray Talagi for Cowboys. Luminous, Isaac Tago for Panthers. Game breakers, Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. Luminous, Alefiana Kampi error for Titans. League heads, Big Tino for Titans. Luminous, Addo Carr for the Eels. Die cut, Big Tino for Titans. Luminous, Robert Toya for the Roosters. League heads, Falago for Storm. Luminous, Samaima Torfa for the Raiders. Game breakers, Joash for Eels. Luminous, Tamir Martin for the Warriors. Bang, Tyrone Wishart for Storm. Luminous, Jai Gray for Rabbitohs. League heads, Clinton Gutherson for the Dragons. Luminous, Reed Marnie for Cowboys. Dally M. Luminous, Damien Cook for the Dragons. League heads, Wade Egan for the Warriors. Luminous, Adam Dewey for the Tigers. Red Triumph, Cameron Munster for Storm. Luminous, Dominic Young for Knights. Mercury, Jermaine Isako for Dolphins, 133. Luminous, Dean Mariner for the Broncos. Game breakers, Tyson Frizzell for the Knights. Luminous, Isabel Kelly for the Roosters. League heads, Ruben Garrick for Manly. Luminous, Nelson Asafa Solomona for Storm. Bang, Dylan Lucas for the Knights. Luminous, Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. Game breakers, Tanilla Paseka for Manly. Luminous Valami Kickout for the Bulldogs. League heads, Dylan Lucas for the Knights. Luminous Apisai Coruscant for the Tigers. Die cuts, Jason Tormalolo for the Cowboys. Luminous Liam Martin for the Panthers. Bang, Cody Nikarima for Dolphins. Oh. Luminous Scott Drinkwater for Cowboys. League heads, Mitchell Moses for the Eels. Luminous Luca Moretti for the Eels. Liam Martin for the Panthers. Luminous James Fisher-Harris for Warriors. Get it open. Gladiators, Jason Tormalolo for the Cowboys, number 315. Luminous Yasmin Clydesdale for the Knights. League heads, Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Val Holmes for the Dragons. Die cut, Spencer Lenu for Roosters. Luminous Big Tino for Titans. We've got 5 packets left for box number 7. Bang, Ethan Strange for the Raiders. Luminous Kale Iro for the Sharks. League heads, Spencer Lenu for Roosters. Luminous Cody Nikarima for Dolphins. 3 packets left. Game breakers, Adam Fanua Blake for the Sharks. Luminous Jason Saab for Manly. Die cut, Clinton Gutherson for the Dragons. Luminous Ryan Pappenhausen for Storm. League heads, Samula Fainu for the Tigers. Luminous Gahamat Shabarski for the Broncos. That's box number 7, done and dusted. I'll move that along. Need to get rid of this jumper before we start the next one. Wheels don't like carpet. Alright, box number 8. Die cut Ali for the Warriors. Luminous Zali Hopkins for the Dragons. League heads, KO Weeks for the Raiders. Luminous Kurt Mann for the Bulldogs. Red Triumph Fanua Pole for the Tigers. Luminous Jermaine McEwen for the Knights. Game Breakers Max King for the Bulldogs. Luminous James Tedesco for the Roosters. League heads Kurt Mann for the Bulldogs. Luminous Max Plath for Dolphins. Bang Tommy Dearden for the Cowboys. Luminous Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. Game Breakers Bree Chester for the Cowboys. Luminous Regan Campbell Gillard for the Titans. Red Triumph Jacob Saifiti for the Knights. Luminous Jackson Purdue for the Cowboys. League heads Keanu Kinney for the Titans. Luminous Blaze Talagi for Panthers. Die cuts Cohen Hess for the Cowboys. Luminous Tom Starling for the Raiders. League heads Jake Trebojevic for Manly. Luminous Tamika Upton for the Broncos. Game Breakers Sanua Taruva for Tigers. Jesse Ramian Luminous for the Sharks. Mark bang for the Roosters. Luminous Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors. League heads Brian To'o for Panthers. Luminous Ben Trebojevic for Manly. Game breakers Jamie Humphries for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Sanua Taruva for Tigers. Matthew Lodge die cut for Manly. Luminous Will Penasini for the Eels. League heads Jackson Purdue for the Cowboys. Luminous Jonah Pezzett for Storm. Bang Jareem Buller for Tigers. Luminous Keon Kolomatangi for Rabbitohs. Game breakers Cameron McInnes for Sharks. Luminous Matthew Tomoko for the Raiders. Gladiators Lachlan Galvin for the Bulldogs, number 462. Luke Metcalf, Luminous for the Warriors. League heads James Tedesco for the Roosters. Luminous Sarah Togatuki for the Tigers. Game breakers Fletcher Sharp for the Knights. Luminous Connolly Lumi Lou for Dolphins. Bradman Best bang for the Knights. Luminous Samuel Stonestreet for the Sharks. League heads Gehemet Shabarsky for the Broncos. Luminous Tanila Paseka for Manly. Die cuts William Kennedy for the Sharks. Luminous Sam Walker for the Roosters. Bang AJ Brimson for the Titans. Luminous John Bateman for the Cowboys. Game breakers Val Holmes for the Dragons. Luminous Jamin Salmon for the Bulldogs. Die cuts. Jojo Fafita for Titans. Luminous Cameron Munster for Storm. League heads, Chans Nico Klokstad for the Warriors. Luminous Brian Kelly for the Titans. Game breakers, Lindsay Smith for Panthers. Luminous Bailey Simonson for the Eels. League heads, Terrell May for Tigers. Luminous Jesse Southwell for the Knights. We've got 5 packets left for box number 8. Bang, Ezra Mam for the Broncos. Luminous Luciano Leilua for the Dragons. Game breakers, Shaylee Bent for the Titans. Luminous Tony Staggs for Broncos. League heads, Cameron Munster for Storm. Luminous Saya Papalihi for Panthers. Mercury Fletcher Sharp for the Knights, number 6. Luminous Jacob Carraz for the Bulldogs. League heads, Jacob Saifiti for the Knights. Luminous Alex Seafarth for the Tigers. Alright, well, that's box 8 done and dusted. Let's get these cleared up and we'll get straight into box number 9. Alright, including this one, 4 boxes to go in the case plus the 2 hobby boxes. Game breakers, Luke Metcalf for the Warriors. Luminous Jack Williams for the Eels. League heads, Moses Leota for Panthers. Luminous Stefano Utikamanu for Storm. Sean Kepe die cut for the Rabbitohs. Luminous KO Weeks for the Raiders. Game breakers, Apisai Coruscant for the Tigers. Luminous Beau Fermor for Titans. Bang Lycan Togia for the Dragons. Luminous Jason Tormalolo for the Cowboys. League Heads Ezra Mam for Broncos. Luminous Alex 12 for Tigers. Mercury Stone Street for the Sharks, number 362. Luminous Tyron Wishart for Storm. Game Breakers Hugo Savala for the Roosters. Luminous Kira Dib for the Cowboys. League Heads Chanel Harris Tavita for the Warriors. Luminous Braden Trindle for the Sharks. Bang Joash for the Eels. Luminous Sam Verrills for the Titans. League Heads Val Holmes for the Dragons. Luminous Bradman Best for the Knights. Die Cuts Max King for the Bulldogs. Luminous Junior Paulo for the Eels. KO Weeks Game Breakers for Raiders. Luminous Felice Kafusi for Dolphins. Red Triumph for the Raiders. Luminous Ethan Strange for the Raiders. League Heads Valami Kickout for the Bulldogs. Luminous Lachlan Ilias for the Sharks. I'm having a shot at. Bang Xavier Coates for Storm. Luminous Billy Smith for Roosters. League Heads Isaiah Katoa for Dolphins. Luminous Max King for Bulldogs. State of Origin Predictor. Luminous Albert Jones for the Warriors. Game breakers, Blake Brayley for the Sharks. Luminous Murray Talagi for the Cowboys. Make sure you send an email to Gold Coast Trading Cards at live with the one that's going around, and I'll get Dad to chase it up, at least put an inquiry in, and hopefully that'll speed it up getting back. Gladiators, Clinton Gutherson for the Dragons, number 53. Luminous Chanel Harris Tavita for the Warriors. League heads, Sam Walker for the Roosters. Luminous Blake Brayley for the Sharks. Bang Alifiana Campiera for Titans. Luminous Tui Kamika for Storm. Game breakers, Brian To'o for Panthers. Luminous Jake Trbojevic for Manly. Die cuts, Dean Mariner for the Broncos. Luminous Sean Kepi for the Rabbitohs. League heads, Junior Paulo for the Eels. Luminous Tegan Berry for the Dragons. Game breakers, Connor Tracy for the Bulldogs. Luminous White for the Roosters. League heads, Ethan Strange for the Raiders. Luminous Jack Bostock for the Dolphins. Game breakers, Tamika Upton for the Broncos. Luminous Lindsay Smith for Panthers. We're at 3, 6, 8. 8 to go. Bang Jason Saab for Manly. Luminous Fletcher Sharp for the Knights. League heads, Jerome Luai for the Tigers. Luminous Xavier Willison for the Broncos. Cheers. Red Triumph, Marky Mark for the Roosters. Luminous, Tommy Turbo for Manly. Dad,
Yeah.
Warren's just mentioned that one of his parcels has gone to Sydney but now come back up to Queensland.
Surprised he didn't go via Perth. That's their usual flight.
Game Breakers, Cody Walker for the Rabbitohs.
Yeah, well, they probably are do things on it because they won't.
Luminous, Latrell Mitchell for the Rabbitohs. League Heads, Harry Grant for Storm. Luminous, Connor Tracy for the Bulldogs. Die Cuts, Oregon Kafusi for Sharks. Luminous, Roger Tulvasa Sheck for Warriors. Bang, Dean Mariner for the Broncos. Luminous, Tiana Penatani Gray for the Sharks. League Heads, Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboys. Luminous, Terrell May for Tigers. And that is the end of box number 9. Box number 10. Game Breakers, Terrell May for the Tigers. Luminous, Ethan Strange for the Raiders. League Heads, Luke Brooks for Manly. Luminous, Lachlan Elias for Dragons. Die Cut, Milwaukee, Photo Waika for Titans. Luminous, Billy Smith for Roosters. Game Breakers, Max Plath for Dolphins. Luminous, Max King for Bulldogs. League Heads, Connor Tracy for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Lyshan Albert Jones for the Warriors. Bang for Largo for Storm. Luminous Reece Walsh for Broncos. Game Breakers Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboys. Luminous Tolotol Koala for Manly. Red Triumph Hudson Young for the Raiders. Luminous Dylan Edwards for Panthers. League Heads Sam Verrills for the Titans. Luminous Payne Haas for the Broncos. Game Breakers Braden Trindle for the Sharks. Luminous Sebastian Chris for the Raiders. Die Cuts Felice Kafusi for Dolphins. Luminous Phoenix Crossland for the Knights. League Heads Dominic Young for the Knights. Luminous Angus Crichton for the Roosters. Game Breakers Tommy Turbo for Manly. Luminous Jaden Campbell for the Titans. Bang Clinton Gufferson with the Dragons. Taylor Preston Luminous for the Bulldogs. League Heads Stefano Utakamanu for Storm. Luminous Ethan Bluewell for Manly. Golden Triumph. Luminous Jesse Calhoun for the Sharks. Game Breakers Sophie Hollyman for the Raiders. Luminous Kurt Catewell for the Warriors. League Head Herbie Farmworth for the Dolphins. Luminous Felice Kafusi for the Dolphins. League Heads Corey Horsburgh for the Raiders. Hey buddy, all good? Luminous Tommy Turbo for Manly. Bang Ruben Garrick. No, I wish No way in hell would I be able to afford to go to Vegas. Latrell Mitchell, luminous for the Rabbitohs. Maybe Select can fly me out and I'm ambassador for him. Game breakers, Jalen DeGroot for Titans. So are Eels. Eels are going as well. Luminous Connor Tracy for the Bulldogs. League heads, John Bateman for Cowboys. Luminous Roger Tuivasa-Sheck for Warriors. Die cut, Adam Reynolds for the Broncos. Luminous Tiana Penatani Gray for the Sharks. League heads, Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Luminous Terrell May for Tigers. Triumph Christian Tupalutu for the Dragons. That sounds so wrong. Not even close, I'd say. Jack Williams, luminous for the Eels. League heads, Patrick Carrigan for Broncos. Luminous Stefano Utikamanu for Storm. Game breakers, Patricia for the Warriors. Luminous KO Weeks for the Raiders. Bang Zach Lomax for the Eels. Excuse me, luminous Bo Fermor for the Titans. League heads, Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors. Luminous Jason Tormalolo for the Cowboys. Die cut, Tamir Martin for the Warriors. Luminous Alex Twile for the Tigers. League heads, Jareem Buller for the Tigers. Luminous Tyron Wishart for the Storm. Fifth last packet for box number 10. Bang Xavier Savage for the Raiders. Luminous Kira Dib for Cowboys. And Gladiators, James Fisher-Harris for the Warriors. Number 1, 001, Chris Sando. There we go. Luminous, Braden Trindle for the Sharks. Game breakers, Corey Horsburgh for the Raiders. Luminous, Sam Verrills for the Titans. Mercury, Asaya Papali'i for the Panthers, number 195. Bradman and Best, Luminous for the Knights. Bang, Herbie Farnworth for the Dolphins. Luminous Junior Paulo for the Eels. Alright, box number 10 done and dusted. Before we get into box number 11, I'm just going to duck off and I'll be back in a sec. Alright, sorry about that. We're back. Let's get it done. We are down to 2 resale boxes and 2 hobby boxes left to go. Game Breakers, Teddy for the Roosters. Luminous, Hamali Olika R2 for Manly. League Heads, Tommy Dearden for the Cowboys. Luminous, Lindsay Collins for the Roosters. Bang, Jalen de Groot for Titans. Luminous, Milwaukee Fotowaka for Titans. Game Breakers, Asaya Katoa for Dolphins. Luminous, Ali Briginshaw for Broncos. League Heads, Mitch Kenny for Panthers. Luminous, Jermaine Isako for Dolphins. League Heads, Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Jerome Hughes for Storm. Die Cuts, Ezra Mam for the Broncos. Luminous, Casey McLean for Panthers. Game Breakers, Appy Nichols for the Warriors. Luminous, Chance Nicole Klokstad for the Warriors. Bang, William Kennedy for the Sharks. Luminous, Ethan Sanders for the Raiders. Game Breakers, Jerome Luai for Tigers. Luminous, Saitili Tupanua for the Bulldogs. Red Triumph, Jerome Luai for Tigers. Luminous, Sean Russell for the Eels. Die Cuts, Sione Katoa for Sharks. Luminous, Zali Hopkins for the Dragons. League Heads, Angus Crichton for the Roosters. Luminous, Kurt Mann for the Bulldogs. Game Breakers, Reese Walsh for Broncos. Luminous, Jermaine McEwen for the Knights. Bang, Fanua Pole for the Tigers. Luminous, James Tedesco for the Roosters. Gladiators, Liam Martin for Panthers, number 17. Luminous, Max Plath for the Dolphins. Red Triumph, for the Knights. Luminous Sam Walker for the Roosters. League heads Sebastian Chris for the Raiders. Luminous Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. Die cut Harry Grant for Storm. Luminous RCG for Titans. Game breakers Jeremiah Nanai for the Cowboys. Jackson Purdue Luminous for the Cowboys. Bang Cody Walker for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Blaze Talagi for Panthers. League heads Adam Dewey for the Tigers. Luminous Tom Starling for Raiders. Die cut Valami Kickout for the Bulldogs. Luminous Tamika Upton for the Broncos. League heads Payne Huss for the Broncos. Luminous Jesse Ramian for the Sharks. Bang Ali Latua for the Warriors. Luminous Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors. Game breakers Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Ben Trebojevic for Manly. League heads James Fisher Harris for the Warriors. Luminous Sanoa Taruva for Tigers. Connor Watson Mercury for the Roosters, number 444. All the fours. Luminous Will Penasini for the Eels. League heads Kyle Flanagan for the Dragons. Luminous Jonah Pezzett for the Storm. Game breakers Jaden Campbell for the Titans. Luminous Matthew Tomoko for the Raiders. League heads, Adam Fanua Blake for the Sharks. Luminous Luke Metcalf for the Warriors. Die cuts, Dominic Young for the Knights. Luminous Saratoga Tuki for Tigers. League heads, Tom Gilbert for the Dolphins. Luminous Connolly Lumilu for Dolphins. Bang Connor Tracy for the Bulldogs. Luminous Samuel Stonestreet for the Sharks. And last pack for box number 11. Game Breakers, Dylan Egan for the Dragons. Luminous Tanila Paseka for Manly. Let's tidy them up and get into the last box of the case. Remembering, that's not the end. There is still the 2 hobby boxes. But let's finish off the case to start off with. Bang Jerome Luai for Tigers. Luminous Wade Egan for the Warriors. League heads, AJ Brimson for the Titans. Luminous Latu Finu for Tigers. Game Breakers, James Fisher-Harris for the Warriors. Luminous Ezra Mam for the Broncos. League heads, Luke Brooks for Manly. Luminous Tom Dearden for the Cowboys. Game Breakers, Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys. Luminous Jai Arrow for the Rabbitohs. Die cuts, James Fisher-Harris for the Warriors. Luminous Keanu Kenny for the Titans. League heads, Nelson Asafa Solomona for Storm. Luminous Kyle Flanagan for the Dragons. Mercury Luke Lawlily for the Tigers, number 268. Making a mess with the sleeves. Luminous Angelina for the Bulldogs. Game breakers, Cameron Munster for Storm. Luminous, Zach Lomax for the Eels. League heads, Bradman Best for the Knights. Luminous, Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Bang, Dominic Young for the Knights. Luminous, Jamie Humphries for the Rabbitohs. League heads, Jareem Buller for Tigers. Luminous, Billy Walters for Broncos. Die cut, Moses Leota for Panthers. Luminous, Joseph Tarpanay for the Raiders. Game breakers, Payne Huss for the Broncos. Luminous, Greg Mathews for the Knights. Gladiators, Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs, number 519. Luminous, Cooley Kefu for the Dolphins. League heads, Damien Cook for the Dragons. Luminous, Daniel Tupou for the Roosters. Alex Johnston, Luminous, die cuts for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Appy Nichols for the Warriors. Game breakers, Emily Bass for the Tigers. Luminous, Carl Lawton for the Cowboys. Bang, Brian To'o for Panthers. With Fanua Pole Luminous for Tigers. League heads, Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Luminous, Cameron McInnes for the Sharks. Die cuts, Scott Drinkwater for Cowboys. Luminous, Trent LaRoe for Storm. League heads, Jai Arrow for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Jamal Fogarty for Manly. Game breakers, Ruben Garrick for Manly. Luminous, AJ Brimson for the Titans. Oh, I need to change this thing. It keeps beeping at me in my ear. Give me a sec. Pain in the butt. There we go. Bang Jai Grey for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Murata Nakor for the Warriors. I'm actually really surprised with these earbuds. Only a cheaper brand. And I had the Sony really good ones. Lost them at football training when I was coaching my daughter. And then my auntie gave me these because I was whinging I needed to get a new set. Luminous Moses Leota for Panthers. League heads Jermaine Hopgood for the Eels. Luminous Jermaine Hopgood for the Eels. Bang Jason Tormalolo for Cowboys. Luminous Mackenzie Wheel for Cowboys. Game breakers Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. Where are we at? Getting towards the end of the box. Our 8th last packet for box number 12. And die cut Apasai Coruscant for the Tigers. Luminous Dylan Lucas for the Knights. League heads Lindsay Collins for the Roosters. Luminous Lachlan Galvin for the Bulldogs. Red Triumph Katoni Staggs for the Broncos. Luminous Adam Reynolds for the Broncos. Game breakers Kurt Catewell for the Warriors. Luminous Hugo Savala for Roosters. League heads Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors. Luminous Farlago for Storm. Game breakers Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Luminous Brendan Smith for the Rabbitohs. League heads John Bateman for the Cowboys. Luminous Tamale for the Raiders. Alright, last packet of the box of the case. Bang! Chance Nico Klokstad for the Warriors. Luminous Emma Veron for the Sharks. Alright, let's put as many as we can away and we'll slide the rest over there. Alright, well that's all our retail done. Let's bring our hobby boxes over and let's get into them. Luminous Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboys, 231. Luminous Ryan Pappenhausen for the Storm, number 410. Playmakers Ben Hunt for Broncos, number 26. Luminous Gurmat Shabarsky for the Broncos, number 421. Die cut Keon Kolomatengi for the Rabbitohs, number 40. Luminous Jacob Preston for the Bulldogs, number 205. Luminous Jeremiah Nanai for the Cowboys, 534. Die cuts Jesse Ramian for the Sharks, number 95. Luminous Keezy Apps for the Tigers, number 342. Etched Trey Fuller for the Dolphins, number 76. Luminous Cody Walker for the Rabbitohs, number 641. Mercury Sterling Luke Metcalf for the Warriors, number 69. Luminous Brighton Nickera for the Sharks, number 618. Die cuts Junior Paulo for the Eels, number 218. Luminous Kalen Ponga for the Knights, number 559. Luminous Luca Moretti for the Eels, 545. And Patrick Carrigan Gold Gladiators for the Broncos, number 18. Luminous James Fisher Harris for the Warriors. Gold die cuts Sanua Taruva for Tigers, number 160. Oh, how's that? We get a Black Triumph Signature Redemption. Yasmin Clydesdale, Luminous for the Knights, number 484. Alright. Luminous Val Holmes for the Dragons, number 291. Gold die cut Max King for the Bulldogs, number 83. Luminous Big Tino for the Titans, number 322. Etched James Fisher-Harris for the Warriors, number 56. 4 packets left for our first hobby box. Luminous Kale Iro for the Sharks, number 60. And Gold Gladiators, Big Tino for the Titans, number 20. Luminous Cody Nikarima for the Dolphins, number 609. Gold die cuts Thomas Jenkins for the Panthers, number 204. Luminous Jason Saab for Manly, number 546. And lucky last packet for the box. Well, I don't know about lucky. We've already pulled the big ones. Well, it still had something for us. Liam Martin for the Panthers, number 425. And Etched Peter for the Rabbitohs, number 173. Alright, last box of the break. 18 packets to go. Luminous Samula Fainu for the Tigers, number 335. Ray Stone, Luminous for the Dolphins, number 44. Gold die cut, AJ Brimson for the Titans, number 90. Luminous Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs, number 84. Etched Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs, number 174. Luminous Murray Talagi for the Cowboys, number 64. Gold die cuts Cody Walker for the Rabbitohs, number 143. Just back to hobby boxes, hobby breaks. Don't forget, all of our retail combo breaks have the bonus hobby box as well as the bonus sticker album and box combo. Chanel Harris Tavita for the Warriors, number 717. So that bonus lot gets randomized at the end of those breaks as one lot between all 17 teams. Luminous Blake Brayley for the Sharks, number 243. Gold die cuts Tom Starling for the Raiders, number 228. Tui Kamika for Storm, number 37. Etched Samula Fainu for the Tigers, 144. Luminous Jake Trebojevic for Manly, number 87. Mercury Sterling for the Cowboys, Ruben Cotter, number 77. Ones I won the other day arrived today. Nice. How quick's that, Warren? Australia Post are good sometimes. Luminous Sean Kepi for the Rabbitohs, number 302. As long as they don't decide to send it on a tour of Australia before it arrives. Luminous Philip Semi for the Titans, number 354. Die cut Harry Grant for Storm, number 119. Luminous Patrick Carrigan for the Broncos, number 246. Luminous Dane Gagai for the Knights, number 312. Gold Gladiators, Luciano Leilua for the Dragons, number 003. Nice low one there. I don't even know how that is possible. We must have had the end of one case and the beginning of another. Luminous number 19 for the Roosters, because I tell you what, we've just hit another Black Triumph signature in our second box. So 2 boxes of hobbies, 2 black signature redemptions. That's pretty cool. I think it is from my side anyway. That's why I check my... Luminous at number 540 for the Dragons. Gold die cuts Blake Brayley for the Sharks, number 22. So it's gone both ways for you. You've received one that you probably weren't expecting, and I probably wouldn't have expected you to get yet. And before one that you probably should have. Luminous Dylan Walker for the Eels, 177. Let me tell you, I wish we would have opened these hobby boxes now. It would have made the rest a bit easier with a pep there. Luminous Zahara Temera for the Raiders, number 341. Etched Ryan Pappenhausen for the Storm, number 47. Luminous Brian To'o for Panthers, number 402. Gold die cuts Zach Lomax for the Eels, number 175. And last packet for the break. Luminous Luke Lawlilly for Tigers, number 162. No, they're not. Asaya Katoa, Playmakers for Dolphins, number 68. To be honest, if that was the case, I would have been disappointed. But let's go. I would have thought it was pretty amazing that we could do that, but Yes. I like to see the hits spread around. I do like that. Let's start with the beginning. Our first big hit of the break was our instant win. Now, you might have seen that, but I've lost my team list. I want my team list. Craig Hyde with the Eels. Congratulations. Next up, Dally M. Jermaine Isako for the Dolphins. Number 128. Rod Staples with the Dolphins. Next up is our Dally M Rookie Predictor. Number 133 for the Storm. We've got Storm Micah. First break, Micah. Congratulations. Next up, another Dally M number 104 for the Rabbitohs. Cameron Murray. Next up, Dally M Predictor Wildcard number 113. Manly, Jade Thompson. Alright. Origin Predictor number 1. So don't forget the gold predictors are a team, so it doesn't matter what player it is. If your team wins, it entitles you to a set of cards. But this, it's a jersey number as well. Kalen Ponga for the Maroons. There we go. We've hit 2 Black Triumph signatures.
Oh, you're kidding?
No.
Wow, what a break.
And our Golden Triumph number 59. And you might have just noticed, I found it weird, no Premiership Predictor in the retail case. Number 59. Alright, our first Black Triumph signature, number 32. Joseph Romeo with the Raiders. Tarpanay. Congratulations. And our second one, number 11. I don't know jersey numbers. I think it may, it's in that range for him, possibly. Roger Tuivasa Sheck for the Warriors. Chris Sando. Well, congratulations to all of you that hit really big, and thank you to everyone for being a part of it. But that is it. That is all for this one. Don't forget to come and check us out again. We'll be here live at 10 a.m. with break for something. Anyway, it's our retail combo. It has the retail case with the retail starter case, which is 40 starter packets, along with the bonus hobby box, the stickers album, and stickers box. So come and check us out and say g'day. Until then, guys,